What's going on, everybody? My name is Adam. Thanks so much for tuning in to our series called Wonderlife. Wonderlife is all about discovering who you are and why you're here. So let's dive in and discover the joy in being the you that God has made you to be.
So Wonderlife, brand new series starting today. What is Wonderlife? Wonderlife is a not so perfect way to discover who we are and why in the world are we here. What I've learned about life is that everybody wonders. Everybody wonders. We wonder about our purpose. We wonder if we're a mistake. We wonder if there really is a God out there that could possibly love us. We wonder. Everybody wonders all through our life. You know, when I look back over my life, when I was a kid, everything was full of wonder. Remember when you were a kid? Remember when you were a kid and everything was full of wonder? Everything was like, it was like Christmas Day all the time. Like when I was a kid, a trip to the grocery store was full of wonder. Like I wonder what kind of candy I might get when I get to the checkout line. It's funny how we lose that when we grow up, right? I think we got a picture of me as a kid. There we go. Look at me. Look at me as a kid. Cute little guy, huh? Talking about me, not the dog. That's Gizmo. Gizmo was our Shih Tzu growing up, our one and only dog as a kid, so that was my little guy. But when I was a kid, everything was full of wonder. Then you become a teenager, and you wonder. You wonder if you're going to fit in. You wonder if you're going to stand out. You wonder, why are you laughing? Why are you laughing? You wonder who your crew's going to be. Are you going to have a squad? Are you going to have some friends? Who's going to sit with you at the lunch table? You wonder if you're going to be weird. Are you going to be, part of the cool club? You wonder. Then you go off to college and you wonder, what am I going to do with my life? Am I going to find a spouse? We wonder those kind of things. I don't want to waste my time. Then you become a parent. Oh my goodness, do you ever wonder when you're a parent? Your wonder shifts to worry. Am I doing this right? Are my kids eating healthy enough? Are they sleeping enough? Am I too strict? Am I not strict enough? My kids tell me that all their other friends can go to bed whenever they want. I wonder if they're telling the truth. We wonder those kind of things. I wonder how many counseling sessions my kids will need to clear up my parenting. I don't know. I wonder. Am I the only parent that wonders? No, we wonder. Then I can only imagine that as I get older, I'm going to look back on my life and I'm going to wonder. I'm going to wonder, thank you, Snapchat filter. Someday when I'm older and I've got a monocle, I'm going to wonder, did I use my life the best way I could? Did I live out my purpose? Did I make a difference? Does my family respect and appreciate? I'm gonna wonder, and I know that I'm not the only one. And we wonder because life can be full of uncertainty. Isn't that true? Life can be full of uncertainty, and that bothers us. We wish we were certain of where we are, and we wish we were certain of where we're going, but we're not. And here's what I've come to learn. I've come to learn that the uncertainty that makes life scary, is also what makes life exciting. Isn't that true? The uncertainty that makes life nerve-wracking and scary because we don't know is also what makes it exciting. Think about your favorite stories. Maybe you're a book reader or you're a movie watcher. I tend to go for the movie over the book. But whatever it is, isn't it true the most amazing stories are full of uncertainty? Where the characters didn't know what was going to happen and how they were going to get out of this dilemma. And then at the end of the movie, you're like, I didn't see that coming. That was crazy. I didn't know they would be the bad guy. There's so much uncertainty. Those are the stories we love. Why is it we love those stories, but we don't like that life? See, life is full of wonder, which is also full of uncertainty, and this series is about making sense of the uncertainty and maybe finding a few answers to the questions why and the things that we wonder. We wonder. Wonderlife. Somebody say Wonderlife. It's Wonderlife. I believe this series is going to be a powerful series. And let me just give you a little bit of insight where we're going. If you've got a Bible today, you can open it to Psalm 139. If you don't have a Bible, but you've got a phone or some kind of device on you where you can access a Bible app, go to Psalm 139. And if you have yet to download the Lifepoint app, let me encourage you to do that. We have a Lifepoint app out there, and here's what's so cool is on Sundays, you can pull up the Lifepoint app, and there's a notes tab at the bottom where you'll find the notes for today's message. So you can plug your own notes in there. You can tweet things, Facebook things. You can share with the world what God is saying to you. And so I would encourage you, if you haven't downloaded that, feel free to do that. If you want to go old school and grab a gray note card out of the seat back in front of you, you can do that as well. I want you to jot this down because I know that God has you here for a reason. So whatever you found, whatever your note-taking method is, I've titled this message, 1 in 7 billion. 1 in 7 billion. Turn to your neighbor and say, you are 1 in 7 billion. That'll make sense in a moment. 1 in 7 billion. So we're going to spend the next several weeks getting to know a guy named David. David is a central character in the Bible. We see him in the Old Testament, and in the New Testament, they reference back to this guy. It's a phenomenal story, amazing story. David's story would be considered a rags to riches story. He's an interesting character. David is the youngest of 8 brothers. Any youngest siblings in here? Raise your hand if you're the youngest. You know, it's tough being the youngest. You got to fight for everything. I mean, older brothers and sisters always getting the new stuff. It's all worn out and got patches by the time you get it. And although it is kind of interesting, like have you noticed like first kids, there's like 1,000 pictures of them. Second, there might be like 500. Third kid, it's like, they're born. Oh, look, they're in school now. Like, But if you're the youngest, you tend to get a lot of pictures too because mom and dad realize, like, this is the last one, this is the baby. So you tend to be the favorite. But there's also things you don't get. Like you don't ever get to ride up front. You don't get shotgun because always big brother, big sister takes it from you. So David's the youngest. He's the youngest of all of his brothers. He's also raised in a very small village. It's this village called Bethlehem. Bethlehem. Now, you probably are familiar with Bethlehem, but what's interesting is on my trips to Israel, I learned they don't say Bethlehem. They say Bethlehem. Bethlehem. Okay? Bethlehem. So you got to get the back of your throat, some phlegm back there. So on 3, I want us all to say Bethlehem together, okay? 1, 2, 3, Bethlehem. Okay? Yeah, you just cleared it up, didn't you? Bethlehem. Now you're thinking, well, why? But our songs say, oh, little town of Bethlehem. Because could you imagine if we tried to put Bethlehem in that? Oh, little town of Bethlehem, how still we... It wouldn't work. But over there they say Bethlehem. Now, Bethlehem, the town Bethlehem, literally means house of bread. That's what it means. It's a small place, small town. David's not the only person born in Bethlehem. Does anybody think of someone else born in Bethlehem? Jesus, yes. Jesus was born in Bethlehem. Now, a little side note, this is just extra credit. Jesus one time said, I am the bread of life. How interesting that the bread of life came from a town that means house of bread. Just a cool little sidebar. I thought that was interesting. But Bethlehem's a tiny little town. If you go to Bethlehem today, it doesn't look small. It's about 60,000 people now. But in David's day, it was between like 300 and 1,000 people. Very small town. And since David was the youngest of all of his brothers, he was stuck kind of doing the grunt work around the house. Brothers were growing up. They were enlisting in the military. And so David's job was to stay out in the pasture and to spend his time watching the sheep. He was a shepherd. That was his chores. They involved watching the sheep. And so you could say that David was just a small town boy living in a lonely world. Okay? That's basically a summary of his life. But when you look at David's life, it's one twist and turn after another. Every time David thought he had life figured out or knew where he was going, things began to change. And so when you look at his life, you find this youngest brother / shepherd becomes a warrior who is also a musician, but is a rebel, becomes a king, is an adulterer, a murderer, and then the Bible calls him a man after God's own heart. What? How does somebody even get there? I mean, every time you read about David, he's headed in a different direction. And I gotta believe that if anybody wondered, what in the world is my life about? It had to be David. So we're going to shotgun through David's life over the next couple weeks. That's why I want you here. I want you to make a commitment, if it's within your power, to be here for the next 4 weeks. Just say, man, my Sundays are booked. I'm going to be at Lifepoint because I want to discover my purpose. David had to wonder, what in the world was his purpose? I mean, I wonder. Somebody say, I wonder. I wonder. See, David had to wonder, does my story even matter? I wonder if I've messed things up too much. I wonder if God has given up on me. I wonder if I'll ever get through this mess. I wonder if someday life is going to make sense. He had to wonder, because you and I wonder too. So if you got Psalm 139 up, I want us to go and look at this passage together. Psalm 139, awesome passage. This is one of the poetic books of the Bible. Psalms were written by many different people. David wrote a lot of them. What I love about the Psalms and what I love about David is David would get honest before God. He just kind of poured out his heart before God. And in this particular Psalm, he's loving God and he's adoring God and he's commenting on just how much God loves him. But he also has moments where he just gets like downright mad. And he's writing to God and he's like, life is not good, God, and my enemies are all around me, and I wish you would just bust their teeth out. Now, if you've never prayed, God, bust their teeth out, you haven't gotten honest with God. Some of you didn't know you could pray that. You're going to go home and be like, God, you better bust some people's teeth out because I'm about to. And David knew that he could be honest with God. He didn't need to hide his feelings or pretend. And so I love that about him. And he starts off Psalm 139, verse 1. He says this. He says, you have searched me, Lord. And say this next part with me. And you know me. God, you have searched me. And you know me. Now, this is an easy passage to just kind of gloss over and keep moving, but I don't want you to do that. You search me and you know me. Let that sink in for just a minute. God knows you. David is saying, you've searched my life and you know me. Like there are 7.4 billion people in the world today. 7.4 billion. Say billion. It comes off your lips when you say a billion. 7.4 billion people, and yet God knows you. Think about it. It's one thing to say you know somebody. It's another when they say they know you. I mean, you might know about them, but if they know you, David's saying, God, there's so many people, yet you search me and you know me. Matter of fact, the population is growing at such a rapid pace. In our 1 hour time together, there will be 15,000 births. That's crazy. If you did the math, that is 250 babies being born every single minute. People need to find a hobby, something. It's a lot of love in this world. 250 births per minute. Here's why I don't want you to miss this. 7.4 billion people, and God knows you. So often we feel like nobody knows about us, nobody sees us, nobody would care. I wonder if my life matters. Can I tell you? Yes. And what David is about to show us is that we have a God that knows us. We're not a number to him. We have purpose, and our life matters. Let me show you how God knows you. Go to verse 2. Psalm 139, verse 2. David continues. He says, God, you know when I sit and when I rise. So God knows that you're seated right now. Everybody stand to your feet, right wherever you are. Stand to your feet. Stand to your feet. Everybody just stand to your feet for just a minute. God knows that you're standing. How crazy is that? You didn't even know that you were going to be standing, but God did. You can go ahead and have a seat again. He knows that you're sitting right now. He sees when you were sitting. He sees when you're standing. David says, you know when I sit down, you know when I rise, you perceive my thoughts from afar. He says, you even know my thoughts. Some of you didn't know that. You're like, for real? He knows what I'm thinking? Yes, he does. You know my thoughts from afar. Then he continues on. He says this. He says, you discern my going out and my lying down. So when I go out, you know that about that. When I lay down, you know about that. You are familiar with all my ways. Even more, check this out. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. He even knows the things I'm about to say before I even say it. I mean, anybody want to take a guess at what I'm about to say? What's the next word about to come out of my mouth? Shenanigan. That's what I was thinking. Nobody got it. He did. David's like, you even knew that I was going to say shenanigan. Crazy. God, you know me. You know me that well. You've studied the playbook of my life. Look at this. He continues on and says, you hem me in behind and before. What does that mean? He's saying you go before me, but you are also behind me. You lay your hand upon me. The hand of God is the hand of provision and the hand of protection. God, you watch out. You got my back. What good news. God's got your back. And then he continues and says, such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is too lofty for me to attain. He's saying, I can't even wrap my mind around this. You know me so well. And then he asks this rhetorical question, where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? And the answer is nowhere. Because everywhere he goes, God is there. God is there because he loves and he cares. That's what David's trying to communicate. God, you are involved in every aspect of my life. You are even involved in the creation of my life. Look at verse 13. He says, for you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. Anybody ever knit anything? Can I tell you, you don't accidentally knit something. My wife had this nifty knitter. Anybody know what I'm talking about? It's like knitting for dummies, basically. And I knit a hat one time. It takes a lot of work and a lot of time, and I'm proud to say I did that. And some of you were like, for real, you knit a hat? I did. God knit you together in your mother's womb. He spent time, thought, intentionality. And then he goes on and says, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Look at this next part. Say it with me. Your works are what? Wonderful. God, your works are wonderful. I know that full well. When was the last time you stopped in front of the mirror and said, God, you did a pretty good job? When was the last time you did that? Now, us guys, we'll get in front of the mirror, take our shirts off, and we'll just start flexing. Never mind, we got like this gut and everything. We're like, man, God, you did a great job. But really, if we stopped and took inventory in our life, most of us are not stopping saying, God, wow, you really put some time in. You know, I really am a work of art. God, you did a great job. Thank you. We're not doing that because we look in the mirror and what do we see? We see all the things we would have done differently. God, why do I look like this? Why can't I be more like that? And all of a sudden, instead of saying, God, I am fearfully and wonderfully made, your works are wonderful, we're thinking, why can't I be like that? Why do they have more gifts? Why are they good, better? And so instead of appreciating who God created us to be, we criticize ourselves and wish that we were more like other people. But David says, don't miss this. Your life is fearfully and wonderfully made. And then he goes on and he says, listen, my frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place. When I was woven together in the depths of the earth, he says, your eyes saw my unformed body. And don't miss this next part. If you got a Bible, highlight this or underline this. He says, all the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. God, you sat and you wrote out the story of my life before a single day came to be. And then he says this. He says, how precious are your thoughts, God? How precious are your thoughts? Listen to this. How vast is the sum of them? Were I to count them, they would outnumber the grains of sand. Anybody been to the beach lately? Anybody ever dug your toes in the sand lately? Isn't it amazing how much sand is out there at the beach? And isn't it amazing how much sand you take back home with you from the beach? I mean, it's everywhere. It gets in everything. If you've got little kids, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. You're like, how did it get in there? Does that not bother you? Are you chafed? How is that? I mean, it's crazy. It gets everywhere because there's so many. But here's what David says. He says, God, if I were to add up all the grains of sand, and if I were to add up all the thoughts that you've had for me, your thoughts would outnumber the grains of sand. It wouldn't even come close. Now, there was a study done a little while ago to try to figure out how many grains of sand are there on the earth. This is their conclusion. There are 7 quintillion, 500 quadrillion grains of sand. Can we all agree that's a big number? Somebody say, that's a big number. 7 quintillion, and then a bunch more. So you got million, billion, trillion, quadrillion, quintillion, okay? Just to get to quintillion. And then there's 7 quintillion. I mean, it's just crazy. And what David is saying is, there's no way to keep tabs on all of your thoughts about me. What is David saying to us? Here's what I think he's saying. I think what he's saying is There are no accidental people. You are not an accident. I don't know if that's ever crossed your mind or what your thoughts are when you think about yourself, but you are not an accident. I love what Pastor Rick Warren says. He says, you are not an accident. Your birth was no mistake or mishap, and your life is no fluke of nature. Your parents may not have planned you, but God did. God had a plan for you. I don't know if you've ever been told that. I don't know if people said, you know what, we weren't planning on having 4 kids, and you were the 4. We thought we were going to stop at 3, but somehow, surprise! Can I tell you, you may have been a surprise to your folks, but you were not a surprise to God. If there's one thing you take away from our time together, it's this. I want you to write it down, Facebook it, tweet it, Instagram it. I don't care what you do with it, but just write this somewhere. I want you to get this. Your story matters. Write this down. My story matters. Those 3 words. My story matters. Say it with me. My story matters. One more time. My story matters. Now look at your neighbor and say, your story matters. Your story matters, and I need you to know that. I need you to believe that. You are not an accident. You're here for a reason. I love the quote from Mark Twain that says, the 2 most important days of a person's life is the day they're born and the day they discover why. The day we find out, why are we here? Why are we here? The average lifespan nowadays is 25,550 days. It's a bunch of days. What if I told you that investing the next 40 days will help answer questions like, why am I here and does my story matter? This whole series and today's message is truly about challenging you and inspiring you to invest the next 40 days into discovering, why in the world am I here? Being able to dig into the purpose that God has for my life. This is a unique series that we're doing. This series is coupling up what we're doing here on the weekends with what we're discussing in our small groups. And let me tell you, if you're a part of a small group, you're going to have an incredible, incredible next season. Because here's what we're doing. We have taken the material that's put together by people of the Second Chance, and it's called Wonderlife. It's where we get the title for this series and the inspiration behind this series. And so there are books that go along with this message in this series, and our groups are going to be studying them. And I want to encourage every single person to get their name down on a list to get one of these books. I would tell you to buy a book, but we blew through every book that we have in the first 2 services. We had no idea that so many people would want a book. But if you'll stop by out in the lobby, you'll see the Lionel form out there at our Next Steps area and just say, put me down for a book. We'll have them and we'll rush ship them and we'll get them here for next week so that you can have this. Because I believe if we'll spend the next 40 days discovering why we're here and how, what the purpose God created us for, we're going to begin to find so much more joy and significance in our life. Now, I know some of you are like, man, I'm not really a book person. You got that on, a movie? I don't have it on movie. There are some video clips we'll share with you. But I want to tell you, this is not your normal book. If you like books with pictures, you're going to love this book. Let me just show you a few that I really think are pretty awesome. Let's see if I can find a few. Oh, here's a cool one. So this is kind of what some of the pages look like. It's kind of like an adult coloring book. So if you're like, man, I'm not really into reading, hey, how about coloring? You down with coloring? And so there's so much cool stuff in there. Let me find you just a few others that are really neat. Here we go. I love this. I like books with big print and small pages because it makes me feel like a speed reader. Check this one out. Huh? It don't get any better than that. Perfect is so boring. Next page. I like that. And so I just want to encourage you. It's a phenomenal resource. It's going to walk you through significance, give you things to think about. It's going to guide your discussions as a group. I would encourage you to go pick one up or put your name on the list to get one. You can go on their website and buy them, but they'll cost you more. More power to you if you want to do that. The most important thing is that we say, I'm going to take some time because my life matters. Don't waste it. If you're not in a group, get in a group. You can sign up today by stopping by our Next Steps and say, hey, I need to get in a group. Or even easier, you can get your Lifepoint app out or go online. There's a tab at the bottom that says Next Steps. And when you click it, it'll pull up small groups. And you can sign up. You can look over the small groups and find a group. And if the idea of going to a stranger's house for a small group is just creepy, I totally get that. Listen, we've got some that meet at coffee shops. We've got some that meet right here on campus on Wednesday night. There is a group for everybody. I want you to say, the next 40 days, I'm going to invest into discovering why I'm here, learn more about my life, why it matters, And so I want to encourage you to do that. Let me tell you where we're going over the next few weeks, because I don't want you to miss a single week. We're going to talk next week about how there's meaning to the mess. That I know a lot of us say, okay, if God wrote my life out, that's awesome, but you don't understand. I hijacked the story, and I've messed things up, and I just don't know if God could still use me. Let me just tell you, here at Lifepoint, we believe that if you're not dead, God's not done. That he's got more ahead of you. There is meaning to the mess. A lot of times we wonder about our purpose. I want you to know there's purpose in our passion. You are passionate about things for a reason. So often we wonder, why do I care about the things I care about? And why is it that nobody else cares about these things like I do? Can I tell you that you are passionate about the things that you're passionate about for a reason? Let me also tell you that the things you perceive as limitations just might be the launch pad to get you to God's destination for your life. So many of us struggle with being present. We're stuck mentally living in the past or striving for the future that we're missing out on here and now. And we're going to help you walk through all of this over the next 4 weeks to discover how and why God has wired us the way that he's wired us. So here's what I want us to do. I want us to close with a prayer that David offers up near the end of Psalm 139, verse 23 and 24. I want to put this on the screen. I want us to read this and make this our prayer. He says this. He says, "Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts." God, would you take inventory of my life? Search me, search my heart, search my mind. I mean, don't raise your hand, but anybody here wrestle with anxious thoughts? Has the wonder turned into worry? And you're consumed about what you can't control? And you're just saying, God, search me. Search me and know me. Test me. And then he says this, see if there is any offensive way in me. God, is there anything in me that is offensive to you? Any sin that I've been tolerating that you can't stand and you want me to get rid of? You designed me to live better. God, is there anything offensive in me? And then he says, lead me in the way everlasting. He's saying, show me my next step and I will follow you. Step by step, I'll follow you. So often I look back over life, I think, how in the world did I get here? And it was just trying to follow one step at a time. That's what we're doing. We're saying, God, lead me in the way everlasting. Here's what I want us to do. Let's go back to verse 23 for just a moment. And let's make this our prayer out loud together as we close our time together. Ready? Let's pray this together. Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me and lead me in the way everlasting. Let's pray.